John. Welcome to Time Team's post-match or pre-match discussion. I'm not sure which. I noticed you got the beer in, which is nice.
Absolutely. I haven't got the cheese in, though.
Oh, that's a bit disappointing. Stilton in
Stilton.
Cambridgeshire. I've got the report here, and I enjoy showing people a quick flash of your.
Yeah. Oh, yours is in colour.
Yeah, mine's in colour. I don't know what the purple stuff is all about, but I think you're in your purple phase then.
The purple is all the archaeology.
Right. Okay. So, John, why was this program interesting for you, and why would you suggest somebody watched it?
Well, they've got to watch it just for the geophysics again. I think I say this every time, but at Stilton we did get some really nice results. I mean, basically, we'd got a large field in front of us, and we started at one end and worked towards the other. And as we progressed across the field, we started to find a series of these small enclosures that were following a trackway, and it turned into what's known as a typical ladder settlement, because it looks like a ladder on the ground. But the beauty was, in addition to the settlement, these small landownings and paddocks, etc., we found these really strong anomalies, and these were clearly kilns. Now, the beauty is, when geophysics first started back in the 50s, some of the earliest archaeological features they looked at were pottery kilns, simply because the pottery kilns give a classic response. You go across the pottery kiln and you get a very strong anomaly over one wall, a dip as you go over the floor, and another increase as you go over the second wall. And the strength of the anomaly is something 50 to 500 units, whereas the pits we get are 1 to 5 units. So it's 10 or if not 100 times as strong. And so in the early days, to actually be able to detect kilns was the classic work in geophysics. But what's strange is, over the subsequent sort of 40 years, not that many kilns were found. The work mainly concentrated on finding ditches and pits, settlement, and to have a series of kilns within a settlement and to be able to excavate them was just a fantastic opportunity. You're always not quite sure what you're going to find, but in this instance, we probably found half a dozen kilns in 20 years of Time Team. And to get these within the settlement, yeah, it was fantastic from our point of view.
A couple of more details. I always used to remember on the MAG, we get results we used to call, Salisbury Cathedral spires.
Yeah.
So you're talking about MAG. And,
yes.
Can you just do a little explanation about why you get the higher spike over something that's been heated to a very high temperature?
Yeah, basically, the clay that forms the kiln is heated to a temperature above what's known as the Curie point. This is something like 700 degrees centigrade. And as the metallic ions, the magnetic ions within this clay, they're all at random normally, pointing in different directions. So think of lots of little bar magnets together. As you heat it up and you go over this high temperature, all the bar magnets realign. So you've got all the north poles together and all the south poles together, and that gives the very strong response. Prior to that, it's a whole series of smaller north and south poles. So you create, in effect, a really strong bar magnet. And that's why you get these rare, very strong responses. The difference is that with the clay that's been fired to these high temperatures, you get this sort of increase that's sort of gradual, and it's a curve at the top, dips down in the middle of the kiln where you don't have the solid walls, and then it increases on the other side on the second wall. Now, with a piece of iron in the ground, you get an increase, but it's a sharp increase, it's a point. And the difference is you get, with ferrous, you get a spike, a cathedral spike, whereas with a kiln or an archaeological feature, it's not a sharp spike, it's a curve.
And does that process, that's the earth that was around the kiln, or the structure of the kiln, if you like. When you've got products like large numbers of tiles coming out, and those tiles are scatters in field, do those tiles also have a more consistent magnetic signal because they've been through the heat?
Yes, but the problem is when they're scattered through the field, they're lying in different directions. So it's like having a whole series of bar magnets in different directions. And so you'll get positive and negative responses. When they're all together solid in a lump, that's when you get the big increase. And you only get a very slight dip that goes with it. So you've got this big magnet again. Once you break up the magnet, then you don't get the big responses.
Now, as usual, on the final day and the final hours, I think you managed another bit of prehistoric geophysics, and you got the sniff of some sort of prehistoric structure there, which appears on the results.
Yeah, it was a tiny area in the adjacent field, but unfortunately there was a mature crop. And tempted as we were to get the farmer to chop it down, we couldn't. So we just got this tantalising glimpse in the corner of these curving ditches, which could have been anything. The fact they were curving suggested they weren't part of this ladder settlement, because the shape was clearly different. But that's like geophysics so many times. You start off and you're wanting to see that bigger picture, and you never know when to stop.
What difference do you think putting radar onto that site would have done, John? Would have made a big difference if we'd have got GPR?
No, we did actually try a bit, Tim.
Yeah.
But the trouble is there was too much clay on the site, and radar doesn't see well through clay because the clay absorbs all the signal. Whereas radar can see through concrete and so on, that's because it's dry and the energy will penetrate. Get something like clay and it acts like a sponge, and the radar is zapped by the sponge, and so it can't see anything at depth. So, you get mixed results with radar like you do with magnetics.
A nice example where the good old magnetics gave you a cracking result.
Yeah.
So I think we should probably finish, John. Thank you very much for that. Fantastic to get your insight on that. So I'm thinking of watching Port and Stilton. Can you give me just one good reason why you should watch it?
Could be for the geophysics.
Thank you, John.
Cheers.
We can't do any of this work without you, so please subscribe, back us on Patreon, and make sure that Time Team comes back again.